All right, we'll start at 10:04. Lots of little things today. There's no former script today. I think today is just an opportunity to show you like how I usually put meals together, sort of on the fly, with ingredients that I have in the fridge, and with ingredients I made a couple days before. So for today's session, it's about putting together a meal with the braised pork that we made on Sunday. So hopefully you have that available. If you're following this asynchronously, you should definitely do that before you tune into this session. Is anyone following along today? Or should I just, if there's no one, John is, okay. So let us switch to these. All right, so usually I start with, for my tacos, I actually prefer to add a little bit of carbs to it. So I have some quinoa here. You could use whatever grains you want, but today I'm going to show you how to make quenelles out of a mixed quinoa. So we're just going to do quinoa. I have a bunch that I need to use anyway. So with quinoa, you want to get your pot of water boiling. So I'm going to put that on high. And I'll show you how to properly cook quinoa because it's one of those things that people think it's easy, but it's honestly very easy to overcook. And then we're going to make like a birria style taco today. So we're going to use the braising liquid to form the broth. So I'm just going to heat up some of this broth. And you can see there's a ton of fat on there. So you don't want all of it in the thing. You don't want to heat up all the fat. I would just take like a spoonful and then, make sure to dig into like the very gelatinous broth we have down there. And we're also going to heat our pork up in the broth so it doesn't dry out. So switch. So I got my pot of boiling water for the quinoa. We got a little sauté here for the braising liquid just to heat it up. And we have a lot of time today, so if you have any questions, feel free to unmute.
I kind of have a couple of random questions that aren't related to this specific demo.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any. Yeah, we have some idle time now, so shoot.
So how long do you know, or how do you know how long things will last in the fridge? Like how can you tell when things start going bad?
You use your God-given senses. So smell it, look at it, and in general, like I don't like to keep things over like maybe 2 weeks if it's not like properly stored. So if it's not like pickle shallots they last like 2 to 3 weeks to a month maybe. If you see invisible mold, toss it. But honestly, it's really about sort of using like common sense. So if it looks off, if it smells off, if you touch it and it's like slimy, some vegetables get slimy, like cucumbers, I would just refrain from using it.
Okay, and then we got takeout the other night and actually got it in like these black containers with the lids. Do you keep takeout containers from restaurants?
Yeah, honestly, I would if it's not too like incompatible. I don't like the round ones because I feel like the quart containers definitely if you have quart containers that you get from takeout, definitely save them. And if it fits, sometimes like they don't fit perfectly, which is kind of annoying, but they still fit. But I don't like the round like takeout containers just because they take up more space. Like I want all my kind of storage containers to be stackable. And not take up more space, otherwise I would just get like a Tupperware. But if I don't reuse them, I generally wash them and then recycle them. Any vegetarian option for the tacos? Yeah, so you can actually use your cabbage So if you have that braised cabbage ready, you're just gonna heat it up. You're gonna heat it up with in that braising liquid. Same procedure. I'm just gonna make cabbage tacos. And this is also why I love braising, because you have so many different parts. You could reduce this broth into like a sauce that you can pour over stuff, or you can add a little bit more water to make it a soup, and then add like pasta to it, make a really hearty noodle soup. So my water is boiling right now.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Any vegetarian options for the tacos?
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh,
I just went over it. Cabbage. Use your cabbage from Sunday. So with quinoa, you want to make sure the water is seasoned. So tons of salt. Should taste like seawater. And you're going to drain the quinoa anyway, so it doesn't matter how if it's too salty. You just want your quinoa to be seasoned from within. So I'm just going to pour like maybe a cup. Quinoa expands a lot, so. And lower your heat to like a simmer. You don't want to boil the quinoa because it's really small and fragile. You want to keep it at a low simmer. And it's going to go for like 10 minutes. You'll know the quinoa is done when it puffs up. And the way most people overcook it is the ring of the quinoa actually comes off. And that's how you know it's overcooked. So you want to make sure that you take it out before that ring comes off. So now my braising liquid is coming to a simmer. I'm just going to lower the heat, and I'm just going to put some of my pork in there to heat up. We'll come back to it at the end when we're plating.
Hey, John.
Yes, do we have a question?
Yeah, I have a random question. I'm making rice on the side right now because I don't have
Yeah.
any. But also, I feel like you've shared a lot of tips about like things to steam while you're making rice, like in a little steamer basket. And I started putting like carrots and bay leaves, but is there anything else that you'd like to steam with your rice?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part. Is there anything you want from...
Anything else that you like to steam aside from like adding bay leaves or like carrots or anything else to try?
Are you asking about steaming? Steaming in the microwave?
I think you shared before on your like Instagram or something that you like to put stuff in like the steaming basket when you're making rice.
Oh yeah.
There's some good to try.
Yeah, so Tiffany's question is like for rice cookers where you have that little steaming tray on top of the rice, what else you can put on there? I like to eat my rice with like sweet potatoes, so sometimes I'll slice sweet potato and steam it. You can steam broccoli, you can steam carrots, anything that requires like a little bit of, maybe 20 minutes of steaming to really cook through. You can steam potatoes, you can steam eggs, really like sky's the limit. The only thing I wouldn't steam is like stuff that gets overcooked past, the 20-minute mark that it takes however long to cook your rice. So maybe not peas because they'll start to turn to mush. So I'm just putting the rest of my pork into my braising liquid to warm up. I'm not going to season that yet. Your quinoa should be at a simmer. If it's not, make sure give it a couple stir. All right, so now we're going to make our toppings for the taco, and this is where I will show you a few techniques that I haven't covered yet. But are things I think would be kind of neat to know. So we're going to supreme our citruses. So take out your orange, lemon, and lime. You don't have to have all of it. I'm just going to show you how I would do. It's the same thing. So a supreme is basically a good way for you to extract only the fruit of any citrus fruit. So you leave the pith out. So what you'd want to do is you want to cut the top off, maybe just half an inch, that you can see kind of, the structure of the citrus fruit. And cut the bottom off. What you want to do right now, and it helps, it helps to have a sharp knife, is you're going to follow along and cut off like the skin of the fruit, the peel, right? So you're just going to follow along and trim it. I'm going to do that around the fruit. And in general, it's better to trim off more. You don't want any of the pith to remain, because then otherwise you'll have to go over the same. Try it again. You're going to end up with kind of this, basically a peeled, well, in this case, orange, right? So it's going to look something like this. If you see pith, just go over it again with your knife, the sides. And now you're going to take this and just use your knife to carve out between the little, I don't know what that's all, the veins, right? You're going to extract like each segment. So supreme is basically a citrus segment. And this is basically just a really fancy way to like dress up your salad, or even just eat the fruit. And then once you have the fruit carcass, you could juice it. There's a lot of juice left. If you have any questions, the hardest part about this is this is the easy part. The harder part is making sure that you're carving along. And again, sharp knife goes a long way. So I'll do this line. Do it again. You want to use your knife to follow along the edge of. You're gonna basically carve along the curvature of citrus fruit. Sometimes when I buy citrus fruits, I'll supreme a bunch of them, and then toss the supremes with like a simple vinaigrette and apples, and maybe some like romaine or radicchio, like a nice tart fruit salad. Like if you see like pomelo or anything like that, where it's like a huge citrus fruit, it's really satisfying to supreme. You get these huge segments basically. I'm gonna leave we don't need the lemon, so How's everyone doing? Easy, hard? We're gonna make toppings. We're gonna make more toppings for the taco. Check on your quinoa. Mine is boiling. See if it's cooked. Definitely puff up when it's done. So just gonna there a little longer. So the other topping, I have cilantro here that we'll chop, and then we're gonna finally dice this onion. There's an onion. If you don't, this is totally optional. So my challenge for you here is like how fine can you make your large onion? Just make it for an easier kind of eatability on your taco. Yeah, I really like taco, and incidentally, it's Tuesday, so Taco Tuesday. I like doing tacos on Tuesdays just because it takes that decision away from me. You could really customize taco however you want, right? It's basically grain, some kind of protein, some kind of meaty vegetable or mushrooms, even fish. You can fry fish. It's a very easy weeknight or weekday meal. Just gonna pick some cilantro. If you have any questions. Herbs like this, you don't have to pick too close. Like you just want to remove like the main stems, but it's okay if you get like the little tiny stems. That you won't notice the difference when you pop it up. I would say it really only matters if you're like doing fine dining. You need like each. You need to be very meticulous about presentation. I'm just gonna chop this up. In general, when you're chopping herbs, you want to make sure that it's in a tight roll. That way your knife doesn't have to move all over the place. And similar to a julienne, you want to make sure it's sliced into thin strips so that you more easily dice it. So now that we have our cilantro onion topping, And the other stuff that we are on the hook for is we have the pickle shallots that we made last week. And then I'm also going to slice some radish as a garnish. I will use the mandolin again. This is my another another opportunity for shill for big mandolin. Not for the faint of heart, but saves me a lot of time, and it's nice to get even slices without having too much work, especially like really thin slices, unless you have a very sharp knife with like a very thin spine. It's usually kind of hard to get those consistent even slices. With radish, I usually just love keeping around radish. They keep forever if you submerge them in water. And thinly sliced, they are really just a good garnish for anything. When they're thin, they also don't taste too much like themselves. And you can make kind of shingles out of them. So with anything thinly sliced, if you're not using them immediately, what you would do is you want to put together an ice bath. And this is incidentally also how you would preserve herbs. If you want to revive herbs, you just get an ice bath, and then if you have parsley or cilantro that's looking a little wilted, you can put them in an ice bath. It will kind of spring right back up. And obviously, you want to dry them before you use them, but a little trick. If your herbs are looking a little bit, have some better days, then that's all you would do to give them a second life. I'm just gonna thinly slice radish. This is a little thicker than I want. A little thicker. Yeah, so I like mine like really thin, almost like transparent. This is really looks really nice. Of course, this part is totally up to you. Let me check on the quinoa a little bit. It is not that done. Paste it. Go for another minute. I will try to answer some of the questions that I think Aaron and Matt posted. They were asking about what my home cooking practice is in terms of like components and atoms, put stuff together. This is how I do it. I really shop according to my own preferences. When it comes to the ingredients, I'll probably if I think I have time that week, I will get it and then I'll do some research on how to prepare it and then go from there. But it is a very gradual process because most of the time when I'm cooking, it's mostly just to feed myself something, nice and tasty. So I'll default to whatever is available in the fridge. And I asked about stories on my fine dining days. A lot of the stuff that he teaches in course is, has an influence. Everything just needs to be organized, want to work clean. How you work matters as much as what you end up cooking. A lot of it is about precision. and speed. You don't want to waste any movements. You know, you're on your feet like 16 hours a day. I think one of the most important things I learned is like cooking is like a mindset. In your kind of your station and how you operate really reflects, you know, reflects the food that comes out of your station. So always keep that in mind. If you work messy, your food's gonna be messy. So that's why mise en place is so important. You want to make sure you have all your stuff ready. And also having good mise en place just means that you can kind of improvise whenever, right? You don't have to do too much work to improvise. The quinoa's done. This is kind of my over. Yeah, it's done. Not all of them has, but yet some of the rings started to come off. You can see that the rings are kind of still intact. If all you see is a pool of rings, then you definitely overcooked it. I used to have to make puffed quinoa as kind of the garnish for our salads. That thing is a pain in the ass. What you have to do is you have to cook quinoa perfectly, and then you have to cool it, and then you have to dehydrate it, maybe like 50 to 60%, so that still has water in there, but not so much that you can't. When you fry it, it doesn't explode. Once you have it perfectly dehydrated, perfectly cooked, perfectly dehydrated, you have to fry it at 450. Anything lower, it will not puff correctly. You have to start the whole process again. It's like a 2-day project. Okay, so you're going to drain your quinoa. I like to fill it in an ice bath. And then if your pork or cabbage is sufficiently heated up, I would just leave it on the stove or turn off the stove so it doesn't like overcook. Aaron also asked how you could go about sort of measuring, you know, improving as a home cook. I think if you really have a professional curiosity about what it takes to be a line cook, and definitely like right now, especially, now's a really good time to try the restaurant industry because people are dying. Restaurants, chefs are dying to hire. You'll probably get paid a little bit more than I did. You know, it's still going to be close to minimum wage, but if that's been on the back of your mind and something you want to try, I would highly recommend you do it. And I think right now is also when you get to skip like a lot of the prep cook roles. Usually like at a finer dining establishment, they'll want you to be a prep cook first, and you could be doing that for like months before they even let you on the line. I think because of the labor shortage, they'll probably take a chance on you and put you on the line before you're ready, which is honestly the best way to learn. Okay, so quinoa is done. Drain it, chill it. And I think with regards to cooking, especially as a home cook, everyone eats at restaurants. So, an easy way to measure your personal growth is like pick a dish that you like at a restaurant and I try to recreate it and make it better than they are, right? Because if it tastes better than what a professional can cook, then you know that you're doing a pretty damn good job.
Hey, John.
Yep.
We had a question in the chat. Why did you drain the hot quinoa liquid into the ice bath?
Oh, because I don't need it. I just use the sieve so that, you know, because I want all the quinoa to drain into the sieve. And the only way to do it is if I pour the liquid into the ice bath. But now you can get rid of the ice bath. Yeah. Like I would pour it into a sink, but I don't have a sink in here, which is why I put it into a ice bath. But I also use the ice bath to, you know, cool down the quinoa. Now it's cool. So with this particular quinoa, we're gonna mix it. I'm just gonna put some PP and salt. Nothing too complicated. I also recommend picking up a cookbook. Like if you're curious about like Japanese cuisine, pick up a cookbook. I'll have cookbook recs on Thursday for a lot of stuff. Pick one up, go to the pantry, you know, pick a couple recipes, and dive into it, cook your way through a cookbook. Is I think a really good way to learn, like when you have the basics, what you're trying to get from cookbooks is like variations, right? So like every culture has like a wrapped, you know, a flour wrapped thing. Every culture has like a, you know, some kind of dumpling, some kind of bao, some kind of porridge, some kind of oatmeal thing. It's actually a little bit too soupy for my taste, so I'm just gonna. You want the consistency to be where you could shape the quinoa. Usually I would do a better job draining it. I'd probably lay it out on a baking sheet so that it doesn't get too goopy. This is fine. That's just for me to demo a canal when it comes to like having a mixed thing. Taste it. Pretty good. Right. When you're cooking, always be asking like, do I need this? I have a lot of stuff out because that's kind of me that wanted to show you, but in general, when I'm cooking, anything that I don't need, including like pans and containers that I don't use anymore, either goes in the dishwasher, or I immediately wash it, or I put it away in the fridge, right? And when you do it enough, you just drill it into your brain. It becomes second nature. You don't even think about like, you know, so do I need this yogurt? Yes. Do I need this lime? Yes. Do I need these pickled shallots? Yes. Do I need this like citrus scrap? No. So put it away. And that's really the difference between like someone who doesn't cook professionally and someone who does. It's all about maximizing kind of your efficiency, making sure that when you're ready to plate your food, there's not a bunch of mess, right? And also as a home cook, you have the extra challenge of not having an actual like human dishwasher. So, you know, you have to wash your stuff as you go. That's also another thing that I can't really like teach, but I want to like emphasize is like, you want to clean as you go. So when you plate your food, you have no dishes to wash. Everything's in the dishwasher, your pan's already been cleaned. If you're boiling something and the boiling doesn't leave a lot of residue in the pot, just wash it out. Like it takes 10 seconds. And you'll feel a lot better when you're eating your meal and you don't have like a sink full of dirty dishes to wash. What else is there? I think that's it. I think we are ready to equate everything we have. And right now I'm just going to heat up the tortillas. In general, I like having tortillas around because I usually buy a whole bag and then freeze half of it. And I'll use up, I'll use these up as I go. And if it starts to get a little stale, it's not as fresh anymore, just cut it up, fry it, and now you have tortilla chips. So you should never really have to buy tortilla chips. The way I heat this up is same as everything else. Get a paper towel and just put it over so it doesn't dry out. And then microwave it on high, like a minute. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any nagging things. We are in our last hour and a half together, so speak now or hit me up on Instagram.
Hey, John, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you speak briefly about how you approach grocery shopping each week for yourself and your partner?
Yeah, so there's a database in Notion that I will update with all the ingredients. So basically it is a mere list of what I keep in mind when I have in my fridge. The way I organize my fridge is so that there are like zones, right? So there's like, I keep my herbs I think I showed this on the slide on Sunday. But the way that I have my fridge organized is like, I'll have zones. The top corner would be like herbs and stuff. So every time when I need to go grocery shopping, I just have to look into that zone and see what I'm still missing that I don't have. So let's say I'm like out of parsley, and I usually keep a box of parsley. And this is where like the labeling system helps, because like if I don't read parsley, then I'll just write down parsley on my grocery list. And then there are also things that I usually keep in the fridge. So for vegetables, I'll write this all down in the Notion doc too. But obviously, like you're not gonna have the same palette as me, but this is just kind of what I do in general, like having my own like two-person restaurant kitchen, I would say. So no, stuff I'll keep is like tomatoes, whatever's in season. So maybe like in the summer it'll be asparagus, and then usually I have bell peppers, onions, especially garlic, shallots. And because I organize my fridge by zones, I just have to look in there and see if it's there. If it's not, then I'll add it to my list. Did I answer your question? And I think you're going to start to develop your own database too. Like if you find that you love fennel, then you're always going to keep fennel in the fridge, and you're going to optimize your fridge storage around like keeping fennel there. So you might get plastic wrap. The fennel keeps really well if you wrap it, right? So for me, I eat a lot of cucumbers, so I'll have cucumbers. What I will say is helpful is if you stick to like 10 things that you always have in your fridge, so that you're always incentivized to like learn more about it. And so you now know that if you keep a lot of cucumbers, you can make like an Asian, Chinese crushed cucumber salad, or you can use it as a base for gazpacho, And you only really learn how to do those things by keeping those things around, right? And that's where kind of my whole spiel about using recipes for renewal, not survival. Like if you have cucumbers and you don't want to make a cucumber salad tonight, you can Google it. You know, there's tons of information out there. I'll tell you how to use up the cucumbers. Okay, so now my potatoes are heated. I will show you how to. Okay, hold on. Before we do that, you want to take your pork out so that it's minced, and then we're going to season the broth because we're going to use that as the dipping sauce as for our birria tacos. If you haven't had birria tacos, I would highly recommend you try it. I know like New York has a bunch now, and I'm really happy that New York finally got good tacos because it was pretty dire before. There's one in Long Island City that I really like. Yeah, so you should have some liquid left. And then I'm just gonna taste it and season it. It should be like pretty savory already because we raised a whole pork shoulder in it. But I like to season it a little bit more because we don't really have like a salsa today. So this extra salt will help season the taco too. All right. We'll get that heat ready. I'm going to show you how to make quenelles two ways. There are two ways you can do quenelles. Quenelles are basically a three-sided oval shape. It's mostly, you know, you can make it out of sauce. You can make it out of something like a mixture, like kind of like the quinoa salad that we're gonna do. With quenelles, it's really just about presentation. You don't have to do it. A lot of you probably have seen it in finer dining establishments when they like give you a plated composed dessert and then like do like a quenelle, that really nice oval shape, almost looks like a football. Of a nice one. Now with quenelles, what you need with something that's a little bit more solid. Actually, we'll do the liquid one first. You will need a plating spoon. You could use a regular spoon. I have like a fancy plating spoon here. Usually you want something that you're basically going to form the quenelle with the side of your spoon. So what you want to do is, I have yogurt here, and it's more of a saucy consistency, so it's not going to keep the shape, but it's still going to look kind of, you know, presentable on the plate. So what you want to do is you want to push away from the spoon and then kind of bend it over, make that shape. And then you're going to get this kind of three-sided oval shape, right? We'll do it again. Mix it up. You can also do this with whipping cream. If you whip it to like a pretty stiff peak consistency, it'll be easier to do. Unfortunately, I'm lactose intolerant, so I'm not going to do that. But again, you're going to push away. Maybe dig your spoon halfway into the mixture, push away, and then kind of round it. So we're going to get this nice, like that. It's going to look kind of like, with a sauce like this, obviously it's not going to keep that shape, but you still get that nice kind of shingled, single-sided shingle. And then what you can do is use this as a plating starting point and just kind of do that. And so that's kind of where you'll put your proteins and kind of how you'll start your plate. And then the other way, when you have something more solid, and I wish my quinoa salad was a little bit more presentable, less goopy, is you want to take a big spoon full, like basically however much you want in the quenelle, and then you're gonna basically dig your other spoon, these spoons should be the same size, behind, and you're just gonna kind of rotate with the spoon. And then you're just gonna keep doing it until it's in that shape that you want. It helps if the mixture is a little stickier, otherwise, it's going to fall apart like this. But that's how you get a canal, and then once you have that, you just the plate. So take some practice, but once you got the hang of it, it's really not that hard. It's a little harder with ice cream because it'll try to stick to the spoon. So what you can do to help the canal release from the spoon is dip it in hot water every time before you do the canal. And then once you get really good, it's really just like 2 seconds. You just kind of spoon away, make the canal, and then come up. Any questions? With something more solid, this like 2-spoon method, it's just a little easier to shape. And then you can really define like the 3 sides of the canal. So like that. Cool. Any questions? So, got my Birria soup ready. I'll garnish with some of this. You can see that a lot of these like nice refinements, they don't take that much time. Something I like to say a lot in fine dining is like make it nice, like especially if you're charging people like $100 a head for it. Okay, so I'll plate my tacos now. Let me know if you have any questions. How's your canals come out? Let's see. I'll add a couple of supremes to the taco. A couple of the salads. So when you have these ingredients like this and you're not ready to like directly plate it, I would use a little tray. And the tray that I, obviously have infinity towards is just like this lid container. You can use this. Put a little bit of paper towel on it. So like with the pickle shallots, you don't want to immediately plate onto the dish. So you're just using this to kind of drain it, make sure it's not too wet, and then separate it out. And this is really how you would use service at a Michelin star restaurant, or just in general on the line. You would have all your meats out, usually in like refrigerated drawers, and then when you get an order for something, you put all your meats on the tray, and then you would plate it. Little tweezers here. Use your hands. You'll also do the same thing with the radish. You don't want it too wet, so just put it on the tray. Garnish. Here's a lime. And there you go. That is our last demo ever. How are we doing? How do we feel?
Hey John, did the sauce just come from what the braising liquid from the pork was?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you season it to your preference. Usually as a dipping sauce, I would heavily season it just because you want to, when you dip the tacos in, you want it to be like a very savory bite. Of course, if you want to use it more like a broth and drink it, then, you can dilute it with water. You don't have to put as much salt in it. And with a supreme, the citrus supreme is going to taste really good. Give you that really tart kick to it. Take a picture. Cool. You have 6 more minutes. You just chill. You can answer questions. You can eat. I will be in New York starting on Friday for like a week. So those of you on the East Coast, you should hang out and get food. Because I'm also really tired of my own cooking. So.
Do a live demo in my apartment.
Yeah, I want to share a kitchen, so. All right, I have some questions from Circle that I should go over. How to shop and cook at farmers market. Shop what's in season. What's going to be good at farmers market is going to be what's in season. So like, summer, get your asparagus, get your peas. It's going to taste so much better than what you buy in grocery stores. But in general, I don't deviate too much from what's in season and what I already cook with. Like I'm not going to suddenly pick up kohlrabi from the farmers market, which is not something I eat. So. How do you source and cook specialty ingredients? My interpretation of this is like if you want to buy like Wagyu beef or something and you don't want to fuck it up, then focus on the technique. Like do it on a shitty cut of beef first, and then if you want to sous vide something and you learn like reverse sear technique, do it on a shitty cut of beef first, and then once you nail that, then move up. Same thing with like truffles, and same thing with caviar. How do you build from mother sauces? Mother sauce is definitely like more of a French cuisine thing. The only reason why they teach mother sauce is because it's part of French. It's like a foundational French cuisine topic, and they're the first ones to codify their cuisine, which is why it's taught everywhere. But we're starting to see a shift. Like, there's no such thing as mud sauces in Chinese, but there's like a mother stock, I think. A lot of American food is influenced by French food, which is why mother sauces are like practiced and taught. Obviously, the most common one being like hollandaise, or even like mayo. Or hollandaise is basically just a hot mayo. And you could make a bunch of things from mayo. So like they add garlic, add a little bit more lemon to it. That becomes an aioli or remoulade. So it's kind of important to know. And once you know what it takes to make it, you can make it yourself. Like a hollandaise sauce, you think it's like only like special at brunch, but you can whip it up in like 2 minutes. And they charge you a lot more for it. Brunch too.
Hey John, we have one more in the chat.
Yep.
If you're reading it or
Tiffany asked, if there's a bunch of bread and you see that one slice is getting bad, if you see visible mold, I would toss it, because the mold spores could, find their way into the bread because the bread is so porous. So I wouldn't mess with moldy bread. If it's like a cut of meat, because it's rather hard to penetrate down into the meat itself, I would just slice it off. You can make sure it's coming to temperature right. With bread, it's a little harder to make sure that you're cooking out all the contaminants. So moldy bread is no go for me. Tiffany also asked, hard to tell when bread is going bad, tips on keeping it fresh. If you find yourself not being able to use up the whole bread, wrap it in plastic and freeze it. Never put it in the refrigerator because that makes it go stale really quickly. And in general, keep your bread out in room temperature is fine, in a paper bag. You want to make sure it's aerated. Same thing with pastries and stuff like that. But yeah, just find out what your cadence is. If you're eating like half a loaf of bread, just when you get the loaf of bread, slice it into half, freeze it. You can use that for croutons later. And also you can just reheat it from frozen. It tastes fine as long as you toast it. Okay, we have a minute left. How to develop inside restaurants. I think I talked a little bit about how now's a good time. If you have an inkling of professional curiosity about restaurants, now's a good time to like try it out for like 2 months. It's one of the few jobs where like it's kind of the norm to like just walk out in the middle of the service if you don't like it. So I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just saying it happens all the time. And outside of restaurants, I would say what motivates me, like find your motivation. I think I get a lot of gratification from feeding people. So how I develop my home cooking practice is a lot just inviting people to come cook with me or like come give me feedback on dishes I'm developing, things I'm cooking. And also just it's like a good forcing function because it forces you to try harder. Like Amy's been gone for like the past week and I just find myself not being like really motivated to cook at all because cooking for myself kind of sucks. There's no one to impress basically. It's also a good alternative. If you find that going out and eating with other people gets expensive, it's also a really nice way to have this like nice social activity to bond over. Like when I lived in New York, I used to invite people to come over for brunch and they'll help me prep stuff. We'll like have like dumpling making parties. Everyone goes home with like 10 pounds of dumplings. It's like a nice way to spend time without spending a lot of money. Yeah, and also asked about cutting fish. Cutting fish is like final frontier stuff. I think to really get good at cutting fish, you need to do it professionally because you're gonna go bankrupt trying to practice on your own. So you like sashimi, find a Japanese restaurant that is willing to take prep cook. They'll teach you. And also get a really sharp knife. Taste and layer flavors. I would say it's one of the areas where to develop a complex palate, you need to like try as many dishes as possible. So rely on kind of what you like from restaurants to learn how to layer flavors. And when layering, the good thing to note is like if you're making a guacamole and you want to make it like sour and savory, then you should be able to taste sour and savory, right? And it's also just learning to season and build up your intuition. So, for a vinaigrette, if you want a sweet and sour vinaigrette, make sure that you can taste the sweetness, taste the sourness. Make sure you're seasoning it, so that all the dimensions kind of stand out. Right? Yeah, that's it for my thing unless you have more questions for me. On Thursday, we are going to do a round robin of, or for those of you who can make it, we're going to do a round robin of like how our capstone projects are going or have gone. I will host a kitchen sink hour tomorrow. I'll probably be 2 hours where we can just you're in the capstone where we can just hang out and cook our dishes and chat. I don't expect a lot of people to be there, so also another opportunity to ask some questions. And if you aren't doing the capstone project, I highly encourage you to just carve out. It doesn't have to be complicated. That's the thing. It just has to be something that you've always wanted to make. Join the capstone project channel on Circle. Cool. All right, that's for today.